Hi everyone, let's go through year 2007 MCQ. Question 1. Question 1 asked to separate a mixture of sand and salt, and they already added some water. We know that salt can dissolve in water to form your salt solution. So now you have a mixture of insoluble sand and the salt solution, which means you can use filtration to separate the sand as the residue and a salt solution as the filtrate. Now, if you want to continue to get salt from the salt solution, you can use evaporation. In this case, evaporation is not one of the options, so we use crystallization, which is a better method to get bigger crystals, and in case some of the salt may not be stable to heat. So answer for question 1 is actually D. Question 2. Question 2 says that an old painting was sprayed accidentally with new paint. Now, solubilities of the old and new paint in different solvents were shown in the table. Now, let's think. You want to remove the new paint without damaging the old. So, obviously, the solubilities of the two paints should be different in different solvent. The next thing you want to think about is you want to remove the new paint. So, it will be easier to clean it if it is soluble in the solvent, while the other one is opposite. So the option here you choose would be B. Question 3. Which property is different for isotopes of the same element? So over here I've written the definition of isotopes, which are atoms of the same element with same P, different N was how we memorize. So they should have the same number of protons, and since in an atom, usually protons and electrons are balanced, so you write same number of protons and electrons, but different N, different number of neutrons. So what is different? We know that the name, or another name for nucleon number, is also called the mass number, which is the total number of protons and neutrons. If the number of neutrons are different, the mass number will definitely be different. So an example I can give you is, for example, 35, chlorine 35, or chlorine 37, both have a proton number of 17, but its mass number is different because of the number of neutrons being different. Answer for this is definitely C. Question 4. Diagram shows the changes in state for water. We know that when ice melts, it becomes water, so process 1 is definitely melting. From water to water vapor, it can either be evaporation or boiling to form steam. The other way around, cooling. So when steam condenses on a cold surface, it becomes water, sometimes water droplets on your cup of Coke. And then water to ice, that's solidifying or freezing. So match the processes carefully, you will get melting for process 1, evaporation 2, condensation followed by freezing. Answer for this is D. Question 5. You're given the electronic structures of atoms P and Q. Now P and Q, they say they form a covalent molecule. So P and Q are most likely non-metals. Let's take a look at the electronic configuration of P and Q respectively. For P, looking at the electrons, it has an electronic structure of 2.4. First shell 2, second shell 4. For Q, it's only 1, so that's 1. Now let's try to identify this from the periodic table. 2 plus 4, that makes 6 electrons. Now, 6 electrons. The number of protons usually equate the number of electrons, so 6 protons. Who has a proton number of 6? And yes, that's carbon. And then proton number 1, we're all familiar with that being hydrogen. So back to this, we have identified this P most likely as carbon, Q as H. The next thing you have to think about would be what are some of the covalent molecules made up of carbon and hydrogen? So the common one that we actually see is methane, CH4, whereby each of the valence electron in carbon is shared with another hydrogen. Let me try to bring out a picture of the dot and cross diagram of methane, which is very common. There we go. This is the common dot and cross diagram of methane, CH4. And therefore, answer for this question is C. Question 6. You're given a diagram or a model of ethanol. Ethanol actually has a formula of C2H5OH. Now, even if you don't know the formula from the diagram, you can count the number of carbon from the key. So that's 2 carbon, 2 blue ones, 1 green one, 1 oxygen, and 6 hydrogen. The question asks for the relative molecular mass of the whole ethanol. So you have to add up the atomic mass of individual elements. So you have 2 carbon, 1 oxygen, and then 6 hydrogen. That will be a total of 24 plus 16 plus 6. The answer is D. Question 7, we are looking at the molecule that contains the largest number of different elements. Let's see. Now for A, we are looking at 1, 2, 3, hydrogen, chlorine, and carbon. That makes a total of 3 different elements, while the second one has hydrogen and chlorine, that's 2, hydrogen and oxygen for C, that's 2, hydrogen and silicon for D, and that's 2. Therefore, answer for the molecule with the greatest number of different elements would be A. Okay, question 8. Question 8 states that ammonium chloride was heated with substance X and ammonium gas was evolved. What type of substance is X? Now, written over here, the top 4 equations that you must know. So obviously, this is number 4, an ammonium salt and alkali reaction to produce salt, ammonia gas, and water. And since bases, soluble bases are called alkaline, so the only possible answer would be B. Feel free to pause the video if you have not memorized these 4 equations. They are really, really important. Question 9. Diagram shows the position of some elements in the periodic table. Now, before you do this, you need to know where to draw the zigzag line to separate the metals and the non-metals. Alright, so let's zoom into the periodic table. We know that aluminum foil is definitely a metal, so anything that's on the left side of this zigzag line will be your metals, and those on the right will be your non-metals. Okay, so back to the question. Y and Z, they would be non-metals, and W and X will be metals. That's the first part. Now, the next part of the question asks which elements form acidic oxide. You need to know that acidic oxides are formed from a non-metal oxide. So this is a summary for you once again. Non-metal oxide forms acidic oxide. Example, your carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, silicon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide. These are all non-metals. Metallic oxide are usually basic. Amphoteric with our ZAl, zinc, aluminum, lead oxides, and neutral oxides with a nitrogen monoxide, carbon monoxide, water. Okay, these are the common ones. So answer for this, must be careful. Why? Because in this case, both Y and Z can be possible non-metals, but Z is a noble gas which doesn't usually react with any other elements. So the answer here would be C. For question 10, group 1 metals, alkaline metals, reactivity actually increases down the group. So reaction with water will definitely increase. Now melting point and boiling point is the opposite of this. So decrease. Answer would be B. Question 11, another question on the periodic table. You've already known how to draw the zigzag line. So the metals here would be V and Y. Non-metal will be X. Hydrogen actually is also a non-metal. So the best answer here would actually be A. Question 12, do by elimination. Even if you do not know, all metals do conduct electricity. Not all metals are grey or silver. Not all of them have high melting and boiling points. In fact, mercury is the only one that exists as a liquid. They all usually have high densities except for your group 1 which has relatively lower densities than other metals. Answer for question 12 would be A. Question 13. Now, 3 different metals, copper, iron, magnesium, were added to excess hydrochloric acid. Now, we know that this is a metal and acid reaction to produce salt and hydrogen. You have a graph over here plotting volume of hydrogen evolved against time. Now, what can we tell from this graph? Now, most likely, number 3, what happened was number 3, most likely the metal didn't react with the acid, so no hydrogen gas was evolved. So the line remained relatively straight. For 2 and 1, judging from the steepness of the gradient, now the volume of hydrogen evolved was really fast, and the reaction was super fast for number 1, while 2 is moderately fast. Now, if you memorize the reactivity series of metals, please stop calling me a zebra. I know that lady hippos can swim gracefully. You will note that anything above hydrogen can react with the acid. So in this case, most likely, copper was the one that did not react with the acid. So that would be 3. You're going to compare iron and magnesium. Magnesium is higher up in the reactivity series than iron. So magnesium would be more reactive, and therefore 1. Iron would be less vigorous, so that would be 2. Alright, so correspondingly, 1 will be magnesium, followed by iron, and then copper. Answer for question 13 is D. Question 14. You're given properties of different metals. You want a metal that can be used to make an aircraft. Now you want the aircraft to be light, so in terms of density, it should be low. And if in terms of resistance to corrosion, now corrosive, when something is corrosive, it means that it can destroy irreversibly when in contact with a substance. So we want something that's highly resistant to corrosion. And usually the body of an aircraft is made of aluminium. Answer for this question, high corrosion, low density. Answer is B. Question 15. Which pie chart shows the composition for air? Now we know that in terms of percentage composition, you need to memorize that nitrogen is 78%. That's more than 3/4. So look for one of the pie chart that has more than 3/4, that's nitrogen. So you have over here A being possible, D which is more than 3/4. We know that oxygen actually is 21%. 21%, so this is most likely that. Well, carbon dioxide and argon and other gases are usually the rest of it. So answer for 15 is D. Let's continue with question 16. Which substance is not an atmospheric pollutant? We can find argon is one of the rare gases. Okay, it's less than 1%. That's in normal air. Carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. Now the new spelling with an F, SULFUR. All these are your atmospheric pollutants that we learned in the chapter of air. So answer for question 16 is definitely A. Question 17, we are trying to purify water for drinking. Solid X most likely is like a filtration system, and so we use sand to filter whatever big chunks or dirt whatsoever. And then because you need to disinfect the water to kill all the bacteria, so most likely answer would be C, because chlorine is usually added to our tap water anyway. Question 18. Now you are shown structures of 3 compounds. They are asking which belongs to the same homologous series. Now we're looking at the same family with the same functional groups. So obviously over here you can see the carbon-carbon double bond in Q. This is typical of the alkene family. Well, whereas P and R, they're all saturated compound, carbon-carbon single bonds. In fact, the first one, CH4, is your methane. C2H6 is your ethane. P and R both belong to the alkane family. So the answer for question 18 is B. Again, an organic question. Question 19. unsaturated hydrocarbon, we are looking at the carbon-carbon double bond. So the only one with the carbon-carbon double bond is B. Question 20 is a factual question. Natural gas main constituent is definitely methane. Answer A. So there you go. Answers for 2007 MCQ.